Few minutes talking about criticism. Obviously, if you do anything, you're going to be criticized. The only way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, and then you'll get criticized for that. Really, criticism is going to be a natural part of leading. People feel like they're out of control. They feel like they want to have a voice. So many different things. They think they can do it better when they're not the ones doing it. All kinds of different stuff. So, criticism is just going to be something that you have to live with. But here's the thing: whether or not to listen to it or not. Okay, so not all not all criticism is worth your time. Not all of it is worth listening to. Sometimes it's just nonsense. Don't always accept it. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean that it's true. People say lots of things. It doesn't mean that it's true. You can't base your worth off of somebody else's opinion or interpretation of the facts. So there's a few things you can ask yourself. First off, are they doing anything? A lot of times people who aren't doing anything will sit back and say, you're doing that wrong, you should do this better, you should be do. And it's like, meanwhile, why don't you do it? You see this happen a lot with youth ministries. You'll be doing something, trying to do something to reach more kids and that kind of stuff, and a parent will say, well, why don't you do this? And it's like, why don't you do that? If you have all this free time and you have all these great plans, why don't you go ahead and start putting them into action? The second question: do you trust this person? Is this somebody who has earned an ear with you? Um, Trust is earned. It's not something that you just, oh, I trust them. Why? Because they seem trustworthy. No, you have to they have to prove themselves. And how do they prove themselves? By spending time with them. You spend time with them, you see how they react, you kind of get a feel for them, and then there will always be situations that come up that show where they stand. And that is good. And you shouldn't give somebody that trust if they haven't ever been put through that situation. Oh yeah, I'm going to let my kids go over to this person's house. Why? Do you know that person? Do you know their parents? Like, do you know anything of what's going on? Well, I don't want to be controlling. People do get raped, by the way. There was actually one guy who let his daughter go to a friend's house, and that friend's dad ended up molesting her. The world's not fairy tales and rainbows. You gotta watch over these kinds of things. So, do you trust them? When they give you criticism, is it something that you trust what they're saying? And you have to watch out because sometimes when somebody betrays you and they're trying to get into like a sin or something like that, they'll try and divert the attention off of them, and they'll attack you for stuff, and everything that you do, they'll suddenly have a problem with because they feel convicted. So you have to watch out for that. Are they successful? And I don't mean successful in the world's eyes. I mean successful in the sense of as a Christian in ministry. Are they successful? Are you listening to another pastor who's weathered the storms? And he's saying, look, you need to change this. Well, that's different. He's been there. He does know what he's talking about. Are you talking about somebody who hasn't been to church in 10 years and they think they know everything about everything? So I mean, like, there's a certain point where you have to trust people who've actually done it and actually know what they're talking about. Um, and then the next question, and this is really the last of the four questions: are they behind you? Do they have your back? Are they supportive? Are they loyal to you? Will they put up with gossip about into you? See what I mean? If they're going around ministering to people, which is code for having little gossip groups about everything that you're doing wrong, and then come back with you with all this ammo. Well, they agree with me. They agree with me. I'm not the only person who feels like this. Don't listen to that kind of stuff. That's from somebody who doesn't have your best interest at heart. That's from somebody who has their own best interest at heart. So then, at the same point, is the opposite statement. Don't always reject criticism. Just because somebody says something that you don't like or that rubs you the wrong way, or maybe they didn't say it right, doesn't mean you should just instantly discredit it. I'm not going to listen to them. Uh, you shouldn't choose preferences over the truth. So there's a few questions here that you can ask too. First off, are they right? Just stop for a second and think about it. Are they right? Am I doing that? You'll find that a lot of times you'll have a problem with you'll have like an argument with your spouse and they'll say something, oh, that's stupid. But if you actually just stop for a second and listen to what they just said, God might be using your spouse to show you a massive character flaw that you never even realized. I know that that's happened to me lots of times. No, you're wrong. And then I stop and I think, I'm like, holy crap, she's right. So that's something right there. Are they right? What does your inner circle think? Now, by that I mean you should have a group of people, no more than 2 or 3 people. Yeah, 2 or 3 people who you trust, who have been there with you through thick and thin, who have proven themselves over time, who they have a good reputation. They, had the chance and opportunity to complain and gossip, but they didn't. Those kinds of people. The people like Joshua, where all the people of Israel are saying, no, let's not go into the promised land. And Joshua and his other homeboy are like, nah, man, we should totally go. People who, even if everybody else is doing wrong and they have the chance to do what's wrong too, they will still do what's right. That's what I'm talking about. Um, Ask them, hey, this person said this. Is there basis in that? Do I need to work on this? Is this something that let's have a real conversation about this. So through all these things, pray about it. Whenever criticism you overhear criticism, pray about it. Pray for your attitude. Pray to be able to listen. Those kinds of things, and then be willing to change. Because once again, there's going to be lots of times where in life, um, people say things that you don't want to hear, or they say it in the wrong way, or whatever, and you don't really want to listen to it, or they don't say something and they should. So okay, I hope that was helpful. You guys have a great rest of the day.